I want to start this chapter with a bit of a story, really a bit of a competition. You see, the earliest important artistic commission in 15th century Florence is going to be the East Doors of the Baptistry, sponsored by, well, who else? The Wool Guild. And the competitors will need to create a sculpture of the story of the Sacrifice of Issac. Now, the competition required a design in bronze relief of this image, focusing on this narrative. Now, there's a bit of a story to it. In this story, for those of you that aren't aware, Abraham is taking his son Isaac, a son that he has taken hundreds of years to have, and his wife Sarah was too old to have, so felt to be a miracle, and God comes to him and says, "You will sacrifice your son." And he says, "Okay." And he goes up to a mountaintop. He's ready to sacrifice Isaac when at the last second an angel comes in and says, no, it was a test. So, keeping that in mind, let's look at what they created. And by the way, before we get to that, one other thing. The city, Florence in this case, had recently faced a threat from Milan, and the city fathers exhorted their fellow citizens to assist in the defense of the city. The story of Isaac is one of sacrifice that paralleled the message the city had given to its inhabitants. The Wool Guild may have chosen this theme with an eye towards preeminence in mind, seeing themselves as faithful Abraham, willing to sacrifice everything in the name of faith. Now, there are two people involved in this competition. We have Brunelleschi and Ghiberti. So, of the 7 finalists, we only have 2 panels that survive. One by Brunelleschi, the other by Ghiberti. Both depict the same moment, as the angel stops Abraham, and are designed within the same quatrefoil design used by Andrea Pisano in 1330 to 1335 on the south doors of the Baptistry. So let's start by looking at Brunelleschi's design. This is a sturdy and vigorous study of the subject. Abraham himself seems to have suddenly found the courage to carry out God's command. In fact, he seems to lunge forward, exposing Isaac's throat. The angel is darting in from the left, grabbing Abraham at the last possible second. Whereas in Ghiberti's case, Ghiberti is the youngest artist in the competition and emphasizes grace and smoothness. In his image, Abraham is almost contemplative, hesitant to strike, even as he draws his arm back. Exactly the reaction you would expect of a father, even a father who is told by God to sacrifice his son. The figure of Isaac is clearly based on the classical, on Greek and Roman sculpture. Look at how muscular this boy is, and is one of the first nudes that we've seen since antiquity. Even the altar is decorated with acanthus in the ancient form, here the Greek or the Roman form. Finally, the rocky landscape lends an air of depth to the piece, while Brunelleschi's is very flat and planar in this sense. So you see Brunelleschi's on the right, and you see there's virtually nothing in the background. Whereas with Ghiberti, there's more of a sense of the landscape, more of a sense of what's going on. Now, there are a couple other things I want to point out. Look at the angel in each one. Brunelleschi's angel comes in, and the angel is in profile, just sort of moving in from the left, whereas Ghiberti seems to be moving in from the background towards us. Now, that movement from the background towards us is known as foreshortening. This is the illusion created on a flat surface in which figures and objects appear to recede or project sharply into space. Now, there's one other factor that plays into this. Ghiberti is a more skilled metalworker, and by working with a single thin pour could save the guild considerable money. Here we see the back of the competing pieces, and you can see Ghiberti is using less metal. Now, not surprisingly, Ghiberti, using different forms of composition, using new ideas is going to be victorious in this competition. He's going to do the Gates of Paradise and other doors that we're going to look at later on. Brunelleschi will be famous for, well, an even bigger project.